right, so real quick, man. So the Pistons got to pack up the Cavs expeditiously. You know what I'm saying? Because the Knicks pretty much have waltzed, to the Eastern Conference Finals. And one thing that's dangerous, what's been hampering the Knicks and make them dangerous right now, is the fact that they've got rest. Tom Thibodeau, who rumored to be could be the next coach at Orlando Magic. Kind of some side notes real quick, since we kind of talk about all Eastern Conference. The Washington Wizards get the number one pick. Still could trade AD, is a rumor. Most likely they can get AJ DeBasta. The Pacers, due to some Zubac trade that I didn't even really think about, they lost a pick because it didn't fall inside the top 5. So the Clippers get the 6th pick, in which they lost a pick to the Thunder, which was the 14th pick. So, it worked for them. So I believe the order is the Wizards. Shit, your boy don't even know. I know Chicago 4, Sacramento 3, and Utah is 2, if my memory serves me correctly. If that's right, my memory is on point right now. So yeah, the Wizards 1. My bad. Utah 2. Yeah, like I said, Utah 2. Memphis is 3. Excuse me. Chicago will pick 4th. The Clippers will pick 5. So they fell outside the top 4, so the Pacers won't have a pick. So I think the Pacers, to keep it real, they may want to blow it up. You traded Benedict Mathurin, you traded Miles Turner. I don't think Zubac really fought, what Tyrese Halliburton do, but I think Halliburton is probably going to need a year. The Pacers, they got about this offseason and next offseason. If ain't right, Halliburton going to get the hell up out of there. But, with this series here, which, the Pacers stopped the Knicks from getting to the championship. They feel very confident. They had some, issues with the Atlanta Hawks. And I think, obviously, the issues that happened with Atlanta, they just didn't have the experience. They wasn't ready yet. 76ers, I just think, people forget it, that the Boston, they stripped their team down. They stripped regardless if Jason Tatum played or not, it doesn't matter. They stripped their team down. So they pretty much, that's the kind of the rumor that's going on between Boston and Jaylen Brown, is that they basically wanted to expose Jaylen Brown for being a bum. So they stripped the team down to prove that he really wasn't worth that money, because you got to know they got new ownership coming in. He proved it through the regular season. The last game of the season, it wasn't his fault. They didn't have anybody that can defend Joel Embiid, not even a little bit. So when Joel Embiid came back, it was what it was. And they played dumb brand of basketball. And, the Sixers, for the most part, the difference is this. Boston guards outside of Brown, depending on what they couldn't really fuck with Philly. EJ, Maxey, Paul, one Peyton Pritchard can't fuck with one of them. You know what I'm saying? Jaylen Brown, let's say he took one of they just, and then you couldn't defend, you had him, Brown, defending the guards, defending Joel. Philly just was a bad, they got the Knicks scene food. They had bodies to bang with Joel, and that was the difference. Mitchell Robinson is Joel's toughest, is the guy to guard Joel the toughest, and then Cat is just, Joel is done. He need to retire. So for the most part, the Knicks have been able to rest. I think OG Anunoby, he got injured. He can rest. They have the less mileage. A few of these games, they starters haven't played the fourth quarter, so they fresh. In last year, they were fresh versus us in the first round, and freshness is not really an issue for the Pistons as it concerns. They came into the playoffs rested. Stu, he been gone since the suspension. It feel like, I know he had a calf strain. Duran had a suspension, kind of carried him. He could be a little bit tired right now. But they're pretty much fresh. At some point you could get Herter back. He'll be fresh. Caris LeVert is fresh. Cade is pretty much fresh. Asar is fresh. They just, they the deep team. So, we young, spry, but in general, you want to be able to get that rest. And some people might say the rest worked against the Pistons round 1. They came in sleepwalking, and K coming back off the wearing the flap jacket. I think people don't even. I said he would wear one. I just know from playing football that a lot of people, quarterbacks, that hurt their ribs. So the flap jacket, I think it took him a minute. Even though he scored 40 the first game, just feel like he wasn't. But honestly, styles make fights. And even when the Cleveland series, they lost that game 3 was lost due to coaching. turnovers. They lost it during turnovers. They closed the game pretty well, taking the SAR out and, to buy. I mean, that was one of the bigger questions I had for the Pistons was that, I don't know. I don't really watch many of these content creators in this space. But funny thing about it was I had a question. I don't know if anybody had one. The rotation. I did a video. I was like, man, the rotation is nasty work right now. Because you got so many options. It's some things that's imperative. There's variables that's gonna be there. So when you start talking about certain things that's gonna be there, okay, Dennis Jenkins, you have no choice. Tobias, you have no choice. But in general, like they have so many just different pieces and they can rotate in. It's like when you got so many options, sometimes you just choose the wrong option, if that makes sense. So many different. So they still ain't really found a rhythm as far as, rotation. They might just go off field. They might just be a team that just might be going off the field. But honestly, they need to cut the snake off at the head. Game 4. Game 4 is a must win for Detroit. And in game 3, I feel like the issue, even with Jenkins and Duran and them dudes playing bad in that game and still having a chance to win, the thing that really grinds my nerves in that particular game was as many layups as they missed from K to Duran to Dennis Jenkins. They missed a lot of layups. Karis LeVert. They're very careless with the ball, getting ripped, missing bunnies. So that was a bigger concern to me. The turnovers at the end was hella atrocious, but had they made their layups in this game, they would have won that game running away. But they got to make quick work. You got to get your rest. I don't think, just if I'm a betting man right now, I don't think Duran is healthy. If I'm a betting man, I still don't think Isaiah Stewart is healthy. So other than that, you want to get guys like Tobias Harris that rest. You want to get Cade that rest going into the series. You want to get these dudes that rest. You want that calf for student to do that. You want Kevin Huerter to get rested, so you can get proper time. You don't want this going 6. I'll say this right now. You don't want this going 6. You don't want it going 7. Yeah, you go. And another thing that's not really talked about in that Orlando series, everybody said Orlando was up 22, and and that is true. They were up, right? They were up. But what we never really talked about Orlando being up, other than the Franz injury. What we didn't talk about, y'all? We didn't talk about they had to play 2 additional games. They had to play the Philadelphia 76ers and lost. They had to, matter of fact, they played Boston. I think we forget that. They played Boston and they lost to the Boston backups to get in the play in, and then, after losing to the Boston backups, then they had to play Philly and they faltered. Then they had to play a tough game. So they didn't get the rest of the last game of the season. They played 3 games where some teams was able to rest 8 people, and then they beat Charlotte. So, really probably around game 6 is where, Orlando physically started to break down. I don't even think we talked about this. I don't think we talked about this. I think Orlando broke down. They couldn't make shot. I think they got tired legs other than Paolo Branchino. I think they got tired. So let that be a cautionary tale. Yeah, game 1 versus the Knicks. You might play the Knicks if you win this series. If it was a 5th, we all be drunk. You might come in game 6. You might, you might have a rhythm and they might be stale, and you might have a rhythm in game 1. You might steal one because they out of rhythm. They got cold. Remember the Tigers bats got cold after they swept the Yankees. I forget who they played in the World Series, but they beat us. But then after that, attrition is gonna kick in. Yeah, the Pistons may be fresher than most because some of them, but attrition is gonna kick in. Game 5, game 6, if it go that long, attrition gonna kick in. So you don't want that attrition to kick in. You want to wrap this shit up. If you the Spurs tonight, you want to basically put the stake in Minnesota hard. You don't go 7. Thunder, you want to wrap this shit up. You don't want to go 5. You want to be able to be rested going into the conference finals. But we know the NBA need one of these to go a little bit longer for that Fetty. So But yeah, I just wanted to say that. Hopefully y'all enjoyed the video, man. But yeah, they need to wrap this shit up. But if it's a dog fight, and I'll just say this, the Pistons are one of those teams that, out of the teams that's here, that may be here, Cleveland's the most desperate. Cleveland and the Knicks and the Cavaliers are the most desperate. The Thunder, if I say the most desperate teams left, and we pretty much going RIP to the Lakers, RIP to the Lakers, and obviously Sixers already put out. But we talking about the most desperate teams left. The Knicks are the most desperate team left. If they don't do it this year, it ain't gonna happen. Washington is coming back up. Indiana won't be a problem next year. I think they at least 2 or 3 years away. Washington is a problem. Atlanta gonna get better. Orlando, I don't think they blow it up. They gonna get better. The Pistons should get better. So, and then I would say the second most desperate team is Cleveland. Because if they don't do it right now, Mitchell could get traded. There's rumors that they trying to get him down in Houston. Harden is a free agent. That thing blew up in Cleveland. And then third, I would say the Thunder, from the simple fact that you want to repeat for validation, because most people feel like they only won because Halliburton got injured. And then really when you start kind of talking about, other teams, San Antonio and Detroit is like right there. So much room for growth. San Antonio can trade Pete Fox and create more cap room. Castle's a beast. Harper's son is nice. So San Antonio, the only issue that clouds San Antonio and Detroit is injuries. And that's any team, but with Wemby and K history, injuries. Is injuries. That's the only thing that you're really worried about, because they've made amazing organizational moves for them to sustain the success. So really San Antonio and Detroit is just like, we chill. I mean, we want to win it, but I feel like this the last year before San Antonio take over. And injuries is, and this the last year, if Detroit pressed the right numbers, there could be a run of San Antonio and Detroit for a long time. Keep it real. Detroit got a bunch of clap flexibility. Even with San Antonio, they got a bunch of flexibility with what they can do with some of them contracts. So, yeah, it's very interesting, man. So, thumbs up the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel. Appreciate the love and support. Check out Detroit Pistons Talk playlist. Hit the link in the description. Say find me everywhere: X, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, the whole nine, wherever I'm at. Peace.